Go. Hey, this is Smuggernaut, and thanks for watching. Today we're going to talk about one of the better builds in the game if you're playing on a team, and that's called the Amplifier build. I'll go over the individual pieces and combinations in a second, but let's talk about the pros and cons. Pros. There are a ton of options and a lot of different combinations that work really well together, especially when you try some things out and you get creative. And you can give everyone in your team, including yourself, damage amplification and healing and crowd control. It's just, I wouldn't say a jack of all trades because it's really, really great for buffing. So it is probably one of two builds that's best for giving buffs and also best for crowd control for enemy purposes, but it's not particularly great for healing, which you would think it would be like the all-time best set for healing, but really there's a better one. It's called the Mr. Immaculate build, which it's its own special thing, so I'm not going to tell you about it now. Anyways, for the cons, there are so many things you can customize, it can get overwhelming. There are so many different pieces that you can try out and say, hey, well, maybe this one's better than that one, and why do you use this weapon versus why do you use that ring? So I'm just going to give you four variations, and the last one that I go over is the one that I typically use when I'm playing either by myself or in a group setting when I want to have like a buff set. But there are so many options and so many trade-offs that it's hard for me to even cover just one weapon by itself, just the weapon without any mods. So I'm just going to give you what I use, why I use it, why I feel like it works better than other things, but that's for me. If there's a weapon that you feel like you're better at using or that you're more comfortable with or you enjoy more, then totally go for it. The only things that I would recommend that you keep on are the amulets, the armor set, and the rings, because those are specifically tailored to the other components, and that's why I wouldn't change them out, because the way they are specifically built together is very critical, and I've done a lot of testing. I just feel like those work the best. Still, you can change them out if you want to. You do you. First up, we'll go over the crowd control build. So the focus of the crowd control build is to lock down enemy areas to keep elite enemies and regular enemies and pretty much anything that's not a boss from doing any damage at all. You've got amazing crowd control capacity through the Spore Bloom, and you also double that with the Frozen Mist. Those are large area of effect abilities that are going to lock down sections on your map and do damage over time. And if you manage to get both of them on an elite enemy, you can do half of its health damage just from the damage over time. Period. You can outright kill a lot of enemies with the damage over time because they're just sitting there doing nothing. They can't move. The key elements of this build are the Driftstone, which is going to double that Frostbite proc, the Burden of the Follower, which is giving you more mod power generation, and actually works really well with Spore Bloom because Spore Bloom doesn't have a reduced fire rate penalty, it's just reload speed. And then the Gift of the Iskall, which is giving you passive mod power when you're not actively damaging enemies, so it's a little bit easier to go from fight to fight and actually have these abilities ready when you need to use them. Now, like I said, this is the Amplifier build, so all of the pieces are going to revolve around the Elder set, which gives you a 25% chance not to consume a Dragon Heart, and all allies a 30% damage bonus when you proc a heal. Okay, breathe. First things first. If you're going to use any of these builds, I really say that you shouldn't change the armor. Even though there are a lot of options, like maybe you want to get more defense, maybe you want to have more mod power, maybe you want to have longer mod duration, those are all great points. But there aren't many sets that give you a 30% damage bonus, and this one applies for everybody. considering you have a reduced chance to consume a dragon heart, and you're still doing damage when you run through an area, you can usually have this buff up active 100% of the time that it matters. Like, heal at the beginning of an enemy wave, and then heal at the beginning of the next enemy wave, and then heal in the middle of fighting. You don't need extra duration because you're getting that powerful damage bonus for everyone. You don't need extra, like, so the mod duration doesn't really matter. You don't need to put on another set to have more attack power because this isn't an attack power build. This is, I can lock down an entire map and give my teammates amazing damage bonuses that also work for me, which a lot of people forget. And you can switch it out for more armor or more defense. But again, the whole point of this is to give those buffs. If you wanted to play, hey, I want to be a heavy tank and I don't want to take a lot of damage, throw on Lido set. That's not the point of this. The point of this is you're amplifying all the damage everyone's doing. And for this specific crowd control variant, you're also making it easier for people to survive. Choke points, damage over time, freezing effects on enemies. It's incredible. So next up, let's go over the healer build. I'm not going to change all the pieces. I'll just talk about what they are and why I would change them. Hunter's Mark and Howler's Immunity. One of them increases your critical chance by 20% and allows allies to see enemies around you, and the other one reduces the damage you're taking from enemies by 25%, and it's a radius originating from you, so if enemies walk too far, they don't get the bonus. Riven here is actually a good melee weapon to use if you get in the thick of combat because the healing you receive from it, while small, will apply with the rest of the set. Cleansing Jewel is a little bit different for this because it removes status effects from your teammates, so you're giving them a damage buff through Hunter's Mark indirectly. You're giving them damage resistance through Howler's Immunity. You're removing status procs on them, which is huge against anything. You get infected, you can heal and remove it from everyone. One skill, that's it, one Dragon Heart, and it also just gave everyone a big damage bonus. Then you have the Burden of the Follower, which gives you more mod power generation. The reduced fire rate penalty is not that big of a deal. You're not trying to do damage. You're just shooting things a little bit to build up your mods in between that downtime. And last but not least, Burden of the Devoted, which again reduces your damage even further. It reduces your damage output by 15% for melee ranged and mod damage. But the trade-off is you're healing teammates for half of your healing that's coming in. Not through every source, but for Dragon Hearts for sure. A lot of people will say you should use Mender's Aura or Mender's Charm for this. And you're right, you can use Mender's Charm, but that means we have two separate items that can heal other people. But there's a specific item, only one, that can remove status effects from your friends. And you're still giving them healing from Burden of the Devoted. It's just not as powerful. But again, if you're trying to heal someone, most of the time, you're not topping them off between combats. You're clutch healing to keep them alive in a boss fight. And it's going to get them up at least 50% of their health. So it's going to help them survive through that hit. Plus, if the boss just smacked them real hard, getting them back to full health, if a lot of bosses could one-shot you. So a full health heal may not be as effective as removing the status effect that the boss just smacked them with so they can escape easier. This set is 100% focused on optimizing everyone else's damage indirectly by helping them survive better. So it's not a DPS build. Even though everyone's getting that damage bonus, this is pure support. True and true. Next up, we have the damage dealing version. See, there was one in there for you. I was hesitant whether or not I wanted to make one at all, considering this set really is about helping your team out, but it's nice if you can do that in a different way than just using Hunter's Mark or just the Believer bonus. So I want to point out the interaction between Vulcan's Detonator and the Hive Shot and the Blizzard. Both of those abilities, the Hive Shot, the Hive Cannon, which is the primary fire, and the Blizzard, can proc the Vulcan's detonator, which means it increases their damage. You're getting a higher damage from the Hive Cannon and from the Blizzard, and it's applying fire damage over time. Specifically, it operates differently from something like the Hotshot mod because it allows you to generate more mod power passively than you would have otherwise. So if you hit a group of enemies with Blizzard, that alone should wipe them out. It wrecks face. Because again, it's shooting down little projectiles that are exploding in an area that are hitting enemies for fire damage, potentially freezing them. Yeah, it does so much damage. And you can use it very quickly because of the Burden of the Follower and the gift of the Iskal rings. Both of them increase mod power generation. So really, you've got the Ricochet rifle that's building your Blizzard quickly. You're debuffing enemies with the Hype Shot, which is giving them corrosion status effect, and it's doing damage over time auras, and it's igniting them on fire, and you're still able to buff with the extra 30% damage bonus from the Believer set, the Believer buff of the Elder set. Definitely takes some getting used to, but it is a higher damage capacity that's still helping your friends out in the party. Specifically, the ability to corrode enemies is really nice, and the situational damage output of the Blizzard to literally wreck an entire lane of enemies trying to rush you is great, especially since it hits them past walls, it hits them in cover. It's just the trade-off for that ability, obviously, if you haven't figured it out, it's got tons of attack power, but it has a really low charge rate. With this setup, though, you can actually make it work. Last but not least is a build that most people in this game will not be able to use because of one item. It has the Black Rose Amulet. So if you haven't completed 100 boss kills on survival, you're not going to have that item. Let me show you what's so cool about it. The wearer's chest armor set bonus is increased by 1 piece. It will not exceed the 3-piece armor set bonus. What this means practically is if there is a single piece of armor that has a better utility for your build, it's going to be more useful than you just getting more damage or more healing, or I can corrode things when I smack them on melee. For instance, if you wanted to go with a piece of the... It's right in front of my face. I probably passed it twice. There we go. If we wanted to go with a piece from the Hunter set, this passive reduces spread of firearms by 20%, is unique. You don't find that on any other amulet, so it would be better for you to use the Black Rose and then pair it with this item, so you still get the 3-piece bonus to heal people, and you also get that additional reduced firearm spread. So now that you understand that's how it works, you can understand or see that the Ritualist set gives us 3 solid pieces of mod power generation. 2 directly, and then a third indirectly, which is buffed by the other 2. This allows you to spam abilities way more frequently than you would otherwise. I still use Hunter's Mark because the utility of that, helping everyone else see the enemies and their location, is so helpful. How can you get around something that allows people to see when and where the enemies are going to try to flank them, and gives you a 20% higher crit chance against them? It's just, I would be hard pressed to put anything else in that spot. I've tried it. Even Song of Swords, I would rather leave on Hunter's Mark for the ability to anticipate what enemies are going to do so they don't kill me. Also, you can see here, I've got the Spore Shot on, which is a pseudo crowd control build. Literally, this weapon slot, you can put anything you want there. Anything at all. You can put on the alternator, blaze up huge areas with fireballs. You can put on the assault rifle, which is amazing for building mod power, and do blink token and rush forward and shock things if you want. You could put on corrosive ore if you really like. And again, you have to be closer, but corrode enemies regularly and help the party build their damage that way. For me, the playstyle of the Spore Shot is, I don't want to say unparalleled in utility, but it is really good. And if you haven't gone around freezing and slowing down enemies like back to back to back, and then just walking up to them and shooting them in the face because they're slowed down so much they can't even attack, I say definitely try it. The last piece for this one, specifically the Hero's Sword, is great because it gives you a little bit more damage against enemies that are inside of the Spore Bloom's aura, because if you walk in there, it hurts you. You don't want to hang out in there. So if you don't want to get too close with the other weapons you have, you can still sling your blade and actually hurt things on the inside.